everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land, have no worries. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and this is ILTV's Weekly Review. United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is arriving in Israel tomorrow, and he's in the country for senior-level talks regarding the deteriorating situation in Syria.
The meeting comes as the Turkish offensive against the U.S.-allied Kurdish forces continues, and Pompeo is set to assure Netanyahu that the United States' withdrawal from the northern Syria does not put Israel at risk.
Gunfire, explosions. This is a look at the heavy fighting that shows no sign of slowing down in Ras al-Ain, a strategic border town in Syria. Syrian opposition fighters are continuing their offensive against Kurdish militant groups in northeastern Syria, now that U.S. troops have withdrawn from the region. U.S. President Trump is under intense criticism for the decision, which has allowed Turkish leader Erdogan to attack the Kurds, a minority group that want to establish an independent state in the area and that Turkey views as terrorists.
Now, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has just met with Turkish officials in Ankara, along with United States Vice President Michael Pence, in an effort to get President Erdogan to stop his assault. President Trump even sent an odd letter to the Turkish leader on October 9th, reading, "Let's work out a good deal. You don't want to be responsible for slaughtering thousands, and I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy with sanctions, but I will. Don't be a tough guy and don't be a fool."
Still, though, Trump continues to argue for the pullout, even against the U.S. House, which just overwhelmingly voted to condemn the move. Because as predicted by many U.S. officials, following the United States military pullout, Erdogan launched his attack, killing hundreds on both sides and displacing hundreds of thousands. At the same time, Washington has lost face by seemingly abandoning its allies, like the Kurds, Israel, and even the Gulf states, who after Iran's recent targeting of Saudi oil, looked at this latest betrayal as a major red flag.
Hundreds of ISIS fighters are also escaping captivity, while Syrian forces struggle to reinforce the border. Turkish President Erdogan, however, is not yielding. He views the Kurds, who want to form an independent Kurdish state in the area, as terrorists, and he's also looking to establish a supposed safe zone for housing Syrian refugees.
Barış Pınarı Harekatımızın iki önemli amacı vardır. Bunlardan ilki Suriye'nin kuzeyindeki PKK-YPG kaynaklı terör tehdidinin tamamen ortadan kaldırılmasıdır. Harekatın ikinci gayesi ise 8 yıldır misafir ettiğimiz 3.650.000 Suriyeli Arap'ın kendi ülkelerine, kendi vatanlarına huzuru kalple dönebilmelerini sağlamaktır.
Prime Minister Netanyahu has just 1 week left in his mandate to negotiate a coalition, but the unity government that most Israelis desire is no closer to taking shape. In fact, for 12 consecutive days, the Likud leader hasn't even sat down with any potential partners.
Yeah, and that's reportedly to stall long enough for Attorney General Mandelblit to decide on issuing indictments. But whatever the case, Netanyahu's last coalition meeting was with Israel Beitenu leader Avigdor Lieberman on October 3rd.
A meeting that yielded no prospects, with the other various party heads continuing to push for their own impossible versions of a government.
Shas Party Rabbi Shalom Cohen, for example, says that rival leaders Lieberman and Yair Lapid of the Blue and White Party will be rewarded with heaven if they agree to join a coalition under Haredi control, and the Haredi UTJ and Shas Party heads similarly seem to be softening on the idea of working with Lieberman and Lapid, whom they initially vowed not to sit with.
Meanwhile, tempting as a slice of heaven may be, new Right Party leader Naftali Bennett and Yisrael Beitenu chair Avigdor Lieberman continue to say their only condition is that the government be a unity government headed by Netanyahu and Blue and White's Benny Gantz, excluding the joint Arab list. Either way, Netanyahu only has until October 24th to figure it out, before President Rivlin either grants Netanyahu an extension or hands the mandate over to rival Benny Gantz.
Speaking of political discourse, 12 candidates took to the stage in Ohio Tuesday night for the fourth Democratic primary debate of the United States' 2020 presidential race, and Israel came up in a very particularly interesting way.
Costs will go up for the wealthy, They will go up for big corporations.
Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general.
But I do think it is appropriate to acknowledge that taxes will go up.
I believe the best and boldest idea here is to not trash Obamacare.
The plan is going to cost at least $30 trillion over 10 years.
In reference to the United States' hasty military withdrawal from northeastern Syria, the Democratic candidates took turns blasting President Trump for both making the decision so suddenly and for abandoning American allies in the region, specifically the Kurds and Israel, as Turkish forces advance into Syrian territory. Senator Amy Klobuchar, for example, says, think about other allies, Israel. What do they think now? Donald Trump is not true to our allies. Then Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg calls the withdrawal a betrayal of American allies and values, while Senator Elizabeth Warren, among others, said that indeed the U.S. should completely pull out from the Middle East, but, quote, in an appropriate and thoughtful way.
Who is Naama Issachar and why is she headlining international news? Well, that's the question that many are asking about the 26-year-old Israeli-American whose petty crime has landed her in the center of what many are calling a major political scandal between Israel, the United States, and Russia.
It was supposed to be an easy stopover, just a place to grab the next flight home. But now Russia is the place where Israeli-American Naama Issachar will stay for the next 7.5 years if Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu can't bail her out of prison. Issachar was on her way home to Israel from a vacation in India 6 months ago when authorities detained her at the airport. She was arrested for possessing between 9 and 10 grams of marijuana found in her checked luggage. To put this into perspective, 10 grams of weed would be just enough plant to fill up the palm of your hand. But Naama has been charged with smuggling narcotics. The family is appealing the sentence with support from officials in Jerusalem who say the sentence is disproportionate to the crime. But there was a twist that might make clear why Issachar has been held. Russia has expressed interest in a prisoner swap. In 2015, Israel seized a Russian internet hacker who had been wanted by the U.S. for embezzlement. Alexei Burkov allegedly stole millions of dollars from Americans in an enormous credit card scheme. Israel stopped and arrested Burkov while he had been on vacation with his girlfriend, but the decision to send him to the U.S. for extradition came down just this August from Israel's Supreme Court. Some suspect Burkov to be part of Russian intelligence since the country is so intent on his return. Burkov denies the allegations and says Russia simply never leaves Russians behind. Issachar's prison conditions worsened in August, and many believe it's because she's now become a bargaining chip to help Russians bring Burkov home. Israeli Justice Minister Amir Ohana is reportedly considering walking back on the extradition move in order to see Issachar return home. And in the meantime, Israeli officials suggest their citizens think twice about traveling to Russia.
All right, now Israel is speaking out on behalf of the Kurdish people following the United States' withdrawal of its troops from northeastern Syria. And doing so has allowed Turkish President Erdogan to advance his operations against the Kurds in the region. In fact, in just the past week since the first American soldiers left Syria and Turkey launched its assault, over 275,000 Kurdish refugees have been displaced and over 300 fighters from both sides have been killed. Now, Turkey is threatening even more wide-scale invasions too. So what's being done and why are the Kurds the target? Well, the Kurds are a minority group that have been fighting for independence in a state that would include both Turkish, Iraqi, and Syrian territory. And Israel has supported their self-determination, but Turkish President Erdogan is not on board and views the Kurds as terrorists. That's why Turkey is using the vacuum created by the American withdrawal to go after the Kurds. Well, following these Turkish attacks, U.S. President Trump is now levying sanctions against Turkey's economy and is even sending Vice President Pence to broker some sort of a ceasefire. But this is coming off as far too little, too late, because still the U.S. is continuing to evacuate more and more service members as fast as possible, even though they've slowed the process to allow the Russians to replace them. And this has the world up in arms, especially because President Trump is brushing off responsibility for the Kurds, who have long been American allies, taking to Twitter with the following statement, quote, "Why should we be fighting to protect the land of our enemy, and that anyone who wants to assist Syria in protecting the Kurds is good with me, whether it's Russia, China, or Napoleon Bonaparte. I hope they all do great, but we are 7,000 miles away." Well, as tensions rise between the U.S. and Turkey, the Pentagon is already also planning to remove around 50 nuclear warheads housed under U.S. control in Turkey. And so how has Israel responded? while the Israeli Prime Minister is condemning the Turkish invasion and offering to extend humanitarian assistance to, quote, the gallant Kurdish people. And Israelis are even taking to the streets to petition for the protection of the Kurdish people.
Now, coming back to Israeli politics, and with just a week left in his mandate to form a coalition, Prime Minister Netanyahu is attempting to secure his position by reportedly offering rival Benny Gantz an emergency unity government. And the deal would include a status quo with religion and state, but also the advancement of mandatory military enlistment reform. Now, this comes just a day after Netanyahu also had the leaders of the four religious parties, Shas, UTJ, Jewish Home, and National Union sign a pledge vowing not to join a minority coalition with Gantz.
Such a coalition would consist of the Blue and White Party, the left-wing opposition parties, and the Joint List Arab parties. And it would also likely have to include Avigdor Lieberman's Israel Beitenu party. But many critics are brushing off the pledge as pointless, considering how this arrangement has only been discussed by some media analysts. And both Naftali Bennett and New Right chairwoman Ayelet Shaked have refused to sign, deeming it unnecessary. Even the centrist Blue and White Party has apparently ignored the idea of forming such a government. Gantz has never even mentioned it in the time since September's elections. Rather, a Channel 12 report on Wednesday actually says that Gantz is now easing up to the idea of a joint coalition with Netanyahu, in spite of previous commitments. In fact, he apparently has been telling party confidants that he plans to stall for a number of months before finally adopting President Rivlin's original power-sharing agreement, which either way sees an eventual end to Netanyahu's reign. Rivlin in September suggested a broad unity government in which Netanyahu and Gantz would share power and divide the premiership into two-year terms.
Now, moving on, while the Sukkot holiday continues, not everyone is celebrating. This next story has shocked all of Israel. An Israeli family has been struck by lightning during a beach outing.
What started out as a run-of-the-mill swim in the Mediterranean has turned into a nightmare for one Israeli family. Medical officials say members of the Chatzut family were struck by lightning while swimming in Zikim Beach near Ashkelon in southern Israel. They had come up for a beach day from Beersheba, and reports say 3 had touched a piece of metal equipment on the shore at the same moment it was struck down by lightning. One 13-year-old boy named Asher is in critical condition, while a woman in her 20s was also severely injured. The 3 others are considered to be in moderate condition, and all of the victims were taken to Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon for treatment.
ורק מה שאני מבקש זה שיתפללו עליו, כי רק זה מה שיעזור לנו עכשיו.
The early season storm has caused sukkahs to catch fire as well as trees to come down, damaging a home in the Golan. The intense winds and rains have also put an end to festival-goer fun when the Tamar Music Festival at Masada canceled several performances scheduled for the evening. They did, however, tell guests that they would be able to receive a full refund for the concerts they had to miss.
It's insane. This is also the first time in Israeli history that a human being has been struck by lightning. So,
all right. Well,
another crazy fun fact. Very unfortunate, obviously, but
pray for recovery. Pray for recovery.
All right. Boys, we have some very, very bad news. A new Israeli study says that males are more susceptible to infectious disease than females. Good for me.
Yeah, something I kind of knew.
Well, researchers at Ben Gurion University in the Negev are looking into why this phenomenon is taking place.
Scientists from Israel are working together with others in the international medical world on the Immunological Genome Project, or ImGen, which is a project that reviews immune cells in mice for human research. Until now, all of the projects have tested only on male mice, but Israelis are changing the game. Professor Tal Shai and student Shani Gal Oz began profiling female mice and found significant differences. While females might have a higher potential to withstand immune challenges, they're more prone to autoimmune diseases. An autoimmune disease is where the immune system accidentally attacks the body, mistaking healthy organs for foreign cells that must be attacked by antibodies. Historically, medical research studies have excluded women from their surveys. One of the greatest examples of this is a 1982 physician's health study from Harvard Medical School, which examined how aspirin affects heart diseases. Out of 22,000 participants, not one was a woman. Scientists have reasoned that because women have hormonal fluctuations, they're less reliable examples. But the bottom line is that overall, medicine is typically tailored and tested for men. So we say good for Israel for taking a deeper look between the male and female body, in the name of science, of course.
And now, art is most often used as a communication device that bridges people and ideas, but it can also serve as a therapy that heals communities. And that's why the Artists for Israel organization is bringing together the world's most talented individuals, and ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh has the scoop.
From Canada. I'm from Colombia. I'm from Miami.
The international program Artists for Israel helps bring the world's greatest artists to begin helping communities and people affected by conflict through the power of art. Oh yeah.
הבנות הגיעו מרחוק בכדי לעשות עבודה יפה, התנדבותית. המטרחת 20 מנדי והקולומביאני. לא מפריעות, נכון מנדי? תזדתיה.
Abu Snan is a diverse village with an Arab population of 3 different religions: Islam, Druze, and Christian.
אווירה יפה, אווירה של אהבה, סבלנות וסובלנות.
Being here, everyone's so nice and so giving.
It's wonderful to be here and learn more about the different cultures and the different ways of life.
Yeah, that's ice and that's a cold water, okay?
A lot of different cultures, religions. It's so beautiful. I think I like it really.
Anyone you can ask from the neighbors here around.
Wow, perfect.
Yeah, everybody ready for you guys.
Not that bad.
אני לקחתי קפה בתוך כוס ואני מתקרב אליה בזהירות לאט לאט ומהצד ואני בא ומפתיע אותה והיא נבהלה. מהבוקר היא משקיעה בתוך העין של האיילה. נראה טוב, נראה יפה.
All right, I don't want to mess it up too bad. Artists are here to paint murals that are meant to empower the young women of this amazing village.
It's not remote and far away and elite. It's not locked away in a gallery. It's right in front of you.
I definitely think that a lot of people is doing right now a lot of beautiful jobs. You don't need to go inside a gallery just to see it.
You know, being female, I wanted to give back to the young females here.
We've had a couple interactions with some young girls, so I'm really hoping that maybe some girl here will see herself in this. We'll see that she can do this too.
All right, now we all know some of the hot destinations around the world, from London to Paris to Tokyo. But we don't always hear about the neighborhoods within those cities and what makes them special, of course. So ILTV's Shanna Fold is here to tell us about one little section of Tel Aviv that is making major news.
This is the Yemenite Vineyard. It's one of the trendiest sections of Tel Aviv, and it's just been ranked the 15th coolest neighborhood in the world by Time Out magazine. And best of all, I get to live here. Kerem HaTemanim is most known for Shuk HaCarmel, Tel Aviv's premier outdoor market, where you can find anything from the best grapes and figs to a new outfit. And if you ask longtime Tel Avivians, they'll tell you it has the most authentic restaurants.
There is a good restaurant, a lot of good restaurants, but you have to go to the Mafia Yemenite.
The hummus is like awesome.
But this neighborhood wasn't always a top destination. The area was once one of the poorest in the country. Established in 1904 by Yemenite Jewish immigrants, this area predates Tel Aviv.
It's like childhood neighborhood when I used to live. I love the vibe.
Today, though, there's construction around every bend, and real estate prices are rising through the roof.
ونشعر بلي.
But despite the busyness, once Shabbat sets in, it feels like you're no longer in the middle of the city.
On Shabbat, there is no car around, so it's amazing. You sleep quiet.
Today, there are 50 tiny houses of worship in the 10-block radius. Locals tell us Yemenite families were so big, each had enough men to make their own Saturday morning service. And so, they built out their houses into private synagogues.
Back in the days, it was like a Yemenite Jewish neighborhood, very, close society.
Out of all the people that we spoke with here in the Kerem, there's one thing that everybody loved the most: the beach.
I wake up today at 6 o'clock, so I went to the beach, say good morning to the sun.
Nestled between the Shuk and the sea, Kerem HaTemanim is an oasis in the middle of Israel's busiest metropolis. So, it's no surprise this hidden gem has caught the attention of travelers from around the globe.
All right, well, that is like my favorite part of the city. I love
know,
that.
and I recently moved to the area, so I'm rediscovering it. Amazing. There are a lot of people in our office who actually live around Kerem HaTemanim.
It's a place to be.
Which makes sense because it is the 15th coolest neighborhood in the world.
It's a very cool place to be.
All right, now sometimes you want something so much that you'll crawl into a vending machine to get it, right, Aaron?
It's true, but that's the story, at least for one toddler who walked off from his parents at a restaurant and found himself inside a claw machine filled with stuffed animals.
Yeah,
he had wanted one of the toys so bad that he actually crawled through the opening at the bottom to get it. And when his family finally realized what happened, they panicked. Some diners at the Cholon restaurant just outside of Tel Aviv even suggested breaking the panels on the side of the machine.
Well, Oz Mizrahi, the restaurant diner who actually rescued the little boy, he warned that that approach could shatter glass and be even more dangerous. But he remembered that he had a circular saw in his car. I don't know why a person has that. And he used it to cut the machine open and then pull the boy out. Talk about gaming the system. That is crazy. Look at that.
I think it's pretty great. That's the best way to win the claw machine.
Yeah, well, he apparently got a free toy as well.
He deserves it.
He knew what he was doing. That's it for ILTV's weekly review. See you next week.